record on this. All right, we are recording the discussion. So as I was saying, I found that really fascinating, and I think his comments about the likes of Zahia was quite believable in my personal experience on a tour in Egypt in 2008. That was typical of the sort of Egyptian academic attitude that I found. They didn't respond kindly to awkward questions. I can give a couple of examples, but I won't do that now. So, yeah, what do you guys think of that? And have you got comments? I'd like to hear what historians among you have to say. People like Arka, for example. Any comments, Arka?
Derek, thanks. That was fascinating. But I'm not an historian and I know nothing about the pyramid. But it was a great video. What's the deal about the idea that they sort of made a concrete thing which they would pour to make the blocks? Is that still a thing?
Sorry, I didn't catch what you're referring to. Where was that in the video?
No, not in the video. I'll get to that at the end. Sorry. I'll come back on that one.
Okay. So carry on, explain to us. That's not something I've heard of.
No, I just heard this idea that somebody thought that they made some kind of concrete, some kind of mixture, and then they would pour them into molds, and that's how they built the things. I don't know if that's still in vogue or...
Yeah, I've never heard that one, and to me, it doesn't sound very believable. Okay, right. Any other non-historians got comments? Look, I've been watching some of these videos over the while, and this one is pulled together in a very logical fashion and analyzed some of the questions that I had in my mind, which were never really answered anyway. And he's answered them all beautifully, I think. I think he's definitely on the right track, this guy. Okay, no questions, comments, come on.
Derek, what was that thing about the part that the Egyptians broke when they repaired it incorrectly?
Oh, what they called the Great Step. You can see where they added in the sort of whitish cement to make it into a rectangular step. Where in that old photo that he showed, it was very clearly a V-shaped stone, which would gel with Houdin's theory that it was a sort of guideway for a rope, which was coming down, which would center in the sort of V cleft in the bottom. So it was never. They should never have tried to restore it. It was actually in its original condition. You want to go back in the video, or do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. So they just used some idea that it was spoken in Arabic as being a step.
Yeah, so they just made it into a step as a normal step, but that wasn't. I mean, all the evidence I think he thought that he showed was quite convincing that it should have stayed as a V-shaped stone, which was to guide a rope coming down.
And was that done before Houdin was around or afterwards?
No, that repair was done about 100 years ago.
Oh wow! Okay.
According to the video, if I remember correctly. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Derek.
Can you enlighten us on your knowledge of Egyptology?
Well, firstly, let me apologize if I created a commotion earlier. I thought I was muted, but apparently not. Yeah, I just sent you a mail with a YouTube link for something that I found very interesting, with a very plausible explanation about how to build a pyramid in 9 months, right?
Okay.
It's quite comprehensive.
The computer.
Yeah.
So what was in short, what was that guy's method that he thought was used?
Well,
Or
there are
was
overlaps.
is it just a totally new method that he thought could be used?
No, there are overlaps, but it's quite comprehensive, and I think you might want to
Okay, I'll have a look at that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we got to remember is the fascinating extreme precision that a lot of these blocks were carved to. They were carved with sort of to tolerances of sub-millimeter tolerances,
Have you been to the
a
pyramids?
lot of engineers that have been to study a lot of this stuff have been puzzled as to how they could have. They still don't know, even with modern technology, how they could have operated to the precision that they did, and even the precision of the layout of the base of the pyramids and so on. Is not exactly understood to this day yet. So they had technology and expertise which we do not yet understand.
Have you actually visited the pyramids?
I have, yes.
And you think that it's sub-millimeter accuracy?
No, they're not what those rough blocks that you see on the outside, which has had the casings removed and messed around. But in a lot of the internal structures and so on, you know, those, what are those sarcophaguses and so on that had mummies in some pyramids and so on. And not only in these pyramids, but in, you know, the exact precision and the way that they had this enormous, large square block hollowed out to form a perfect rectangle with very perfect precision sides and measurements. It was just incredible. The way it was there's nobody. It definitely wasn't done with copper, chisel, and hammers, as people have thought all along.
Well, you know, we telescope makers make surfaces accurate to a millionth of an inch with our bare hands, right?
Yes.
So there are ways of working materials that do not require a huge amount of technology or fancy machinery or anything, all right? And dressing stone is not that much different to polishing glass, right? It can be done with abrasives.
Mm. There are some of their structures where they have had one block weighing I don't know how many tons up against next to another block weighing about the same, and all other blocks around it, and in between each block there isn't enough space to push a piece of paper in. They are so precisely ground, and I mean, to do that all by hand, you know, it's just mind-boggling.
Well, those precision gaps between blocks are found all over the planet. I mean, you can see at Machu Picchu, various other places. So
yeah, sure.
It's just engineering. It's just what people do, like Chris says, with repeated abrasives.
But when it was done 2,000-3,000 years ago plus, it becomes even more mind-boggling. I see Peter Strauss has his hand up. Peter, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, please. Just 2 comments. I actually had a talk with the professor. He was an Israeli that said they were made from concrete, which was quite interesting, but it doesn't obviously apply to all pyramids because they don't show the same structure. But really, in the way they made these pyramids, if you had to pull up those heavy blocks, you cannot do it by any rope. I mean, you can calculate the strength you need in those ropes or cables or chains, whatever. So they must have had it up there in another way. My only comment. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a rope engineer, so I can't argue with you. Chris, have you been to Egypt, the pyramids?
Yes, I was actually very fortunate to spend a day at the pyramids, being guided by a civil engineer whose thesis was in fact on the construction of the pyramids.
Okay.
I didn't get to the sort of secret inner sanctum parts of the thing, but you know, I did go down to the tomb at the bottom and sort of crawled around on the outside, and it was very interesting, you know. But I still dispute this business of sub-millimeter accuracies, in general. Huh? All right. So,
All right, I'll find that stuff. It's a long while ago since I saw that. I'm dredging memory when I talk about that, so I'm not sure how accurate I am anymore, but I'll try and find what I had on that. So, yeah, I was there as I say, actually in June 2008, on a tour group. Our tour guide was a guy who had a degree in archaeology, but also he was Egyptian. But I mean, typical of their sort of attitude, we drove in the bus going down the road, we drove past this monument, which was a fighter jet sort of mounted up. Asked him, what's that for? I said, no, that's the monument for when we won the war against Israel.
Yes,
right.
So
I didn't try and argue with him. I just kept my mouth shut because we still had the whole tour to go through. But that was, I mean, everything is sort of through a lens of what suits their current politics and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, I see we've got a lot of other people here, not from Hermanus. Uma Ramvilas, interesting name. Okay, Chris, so what year were you there?
I can't remember. It would have been in the 2000 to 2010, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Around 2010, maybe. So more or less same time.
Just a couple of years after I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went on a tour up to. We flew up to the south. When you say up to the south or down to the south, and and then we went on a boat down the Nile back all the way back down to Egypt to Cairo. And we stopped, at all the usual spots along the way and tours and so on. And one of the things that interested me actually in the museum in Cairo, in Tutankhamun stuff that was found in his tomb, the most interesting thing to me was a whole lot of boomerangs that they found in his tomb. And I've seen it in another video where they say the Egyptians had actually been to Australia and they brought these back as artifacts. And you're talking a couple of thousand years ago. So that to me is a bit eye-opening.
I suppose it's possible.
Well, I mean, how else did you get boomerangs in Tutankhamun? They came out of Tutankhamun's tomb. So they were the same age as everything else that went in there.
Was it also made of wood, or
yes, they're original, carved, Aboriginal, with their markings on it and everything. Aboriginal boomerang.
I also have one of these. I think they've boiled it down to perhaps being a digging stone, or it's a round, like a huge big bead, glass bead made out of stone, with a perfectly round hole through the middle of it. And there are quite a few around, but they're associated with a bushman so far. And the precision on that is also quite phenomenal.
Okay, yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're describing there, but it sounds like some sort of...
No, those round stones with a hole right through the middle.
Yeah, I know they had a thing where they would use it to hold a stick, which they would have another stick with a piece of string around and wound a couple of times around the other stick, and they would then move that back and forth so that the stick being held by the stone would rotate, and they would actually use that to start a fire.
Well, this is a really big stone.
Use it almost like a drill bit on another piece of wood with a whole lot of fine wood piled around it.
Yeah. I've got one. I've got one which is probably 20 centimeters or more in diameter, and it's really heavy. It's way too heavy to be of that kind of practical use. more a digging stick to give it momentum. I don't know.
Oh,
But
right.
still with a
Okay.
perfectly round, yeah, still got a perfectly round hole right through the middle, and the outer circumference is also pretty circular, but it's really heavy. It's
Interesting.
got
Yeah.
2-3 kilograms. Yeah.
Maybe he had
yeah,
a toy motorcycle for his child. Where did you get it
in
from?
the Stone Age, right? Yeah, yeah.
Where did you get that from?
There was a lady friend of mine from years ago, and she said they found it in Wagen Marcus Valley.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but there are quite a few of these stones. There's a museum in Unrust, with Shiloh, in under the oaks, and he's got 4, 5, 6 of them, but they're much smaller than my one. And he
Okay.
seems to think he seems to think that he can only think that was cut with something like the precision of a laser beam or something like that. So technology is very.
Okay, so the Bushman had lasers. Have you
Access
got a verified age analysis of the stone and its construction?
Well, I can, if there's anybody here who can date it for me, you're quite welcome.
Yeah, I don't know
Is there anyone in them? Sorry?
I'm not sure how one dates the actual work that was done on it. You know, you might have an age of the stone, which got nothing to do with when it was actually formed in the shape that it is. You know, to do that, you need to have it found sort of embedded in some sort of a layer of soil, which has got other stuff around it, which can be dated, which would then determine the youngest date when that thing was placed there. That's the only way.
Yeah.
So without that, it's actually meaningless. You can speculate as much as you like. You can't prove anything about it.
Even to the point of lasers, yeah. So
yeah. So I mean, it could have been made the year before you found it. You don't know.
Yeah. Oh crap! All right. But
no way of telling.
Just with the technology of cutting stone.
Okay, Arca's got his hand up. He says he's got a total explanation for us. Talking rubbish.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Explain to us, Arca.
So digging sticks are rather common artifacts amongst the Khoi and the San here, you know, in southern Africa. It's basically a stone donut, and you use it to make literally digging easier. The digging stick is even the name of the UCT's Bushman Unit's newsletter. I don't know about laser precision. I don't know what you're measuring it against, because it's just a smooth rock. So, you know, I don't know what. It's not like there's an ISO standard for digging stone sizes that you can compare it to. So I don't know quite how you got to laser, but I think Chris can tell you that we can get round things to laser precision just by rubbing them together forever. But it's a common artifact. Well, not forever, for a couple of hours, you know, longer than I would want to do it for. But it's a common artifact amongst the San.
Yeah. I think people have a tendency, when they're confronted with something that they can't imagine how to do, that it's got to be some kind of advanced technology behind it. But human ingenuity over thousands of years has produced very interesting techniques to make very precise things. You know, I mean, I talked about telescope mirrors, but in the world of precision engineering, people will hand fashion surfaces to microns using scrapers by hand, right? Because the machine actually can't do it that well.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you? Is that David who's got the? Can you send us email with a photo of it, so that we can get?
I'll send a photo. Yeah.
No. It'll be.
Let me see if I can't put it on the screen for you now.
Well, let me give you enable sharing for you, and then you can do it.
Yeah.
So if you can share, just click on share and select your thing.
Right.
Open a photo.
I'll send you an image. Here it is. Yeah. It's outside, and I'll put a matchbox next to it. And
Oh,
then
okay,
you
you're just
see
going to
my
hold it in
pretty
front of
face?
your camera.
Yeah.
Okay, you just got to
Let me
switch your
work out.
camera on. Enable your camera.
Okay.
Click on your video camera icon.
Yeah, okay. My eyes are very bad, and got to work out. Right.
Second, bottom left,
Yeah.
second icon from the left, next to the microphone.
Oh, of course. Start video. Okay.
There we
There
are.
you go.
Okay, now we can see
Can you
your
see
face.
me there? Yeah.
Yes, we can see you now.
Not so pretty as the rock. Here's the thing.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, that's pretty rough.
There's
It's
a
not so
matchbox.
smooth. Yeah, no, that looks
Yeah, it's
like very possibly the typical digging stick. Yeah, your camera
yeah, but
resolution
it's
is a
huge.
bit coarse,
Huge.
though. Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks as though it could be about 1 kilo or so. So you need a bit of weight to
Yeah.
get a stick to go in. Yeah.
Well, then
Okay.
the people must have been really strong. No, thanks.
It looks like it's tapered, like it's wider on that side than the other side, which would make sense.
Yeah, no, there's a whole lot of sand in there, and it has obviously weathered. It's obviously weathered a lot as well.
Okay.
So it's got leaves stuck in there. That's been in my garden.
Huh.
So that's the size of it.
All right.
So it's quite huge.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
I would say that's a typical. They could have got it round like that just by rolling it and grinding it against another rock, I think.
Yeah. Very good. Thanks. That's fine.
Thanks. Very interesting.
Off you go. Yeah, no, I haven't seen one that big since I've seen them. Yeah. So
I haven't actually seen a real one myself. I think I've only seen photos. All right, is Chris still with us? What did you say, Chris? What did you think that looked like? You think it looked like just a digging stick stone weight?
I think it looks, yeah, I don't think it's very mysterious that people could make holes that are round in the middle of a stone.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
What do you think the method would have been to make that hole with only sticks and sand and stone, and not really any metal tools available?
Well, a lot of stones are harder than the metals, so using rocks to fashion rocks seems quite reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. Or a Chinese drip therapy. Yeah. It'll take a few centuries. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. That was great. All right.
Sorry,
anybody got any further comments? And who else has been to visit the pyramids? Okay. Yeah, I think we need to go back to the pyramids. Anyway, I think we've still got a lot to learn about those pyramids. And I think those guys with the muon analysis was on the right track. I think Zai was only holding them back. So let's hope they get more done in future. All right. Pierre, you've been to Russia, haven't you? Been to the pyramids high up? You got something for us?
Hi, Derek.
Nothing whatsoever. It was very interesting.
Okay, thanks, Pierre. Rob, what do you think?
I was actually reading a book this past weekend. Those round stones that you found with the hole in it, apparently in the Claymont vicinity 120 years ago, there were people going on holiday there who found quite a few of those stones, and they didn't know what they were for 120 years ago, and they ascribed them to strandlopers or bushmen from a few centuries ago, but the use of them wasn't known in the history that I was reading.
Okay, well, it sounds like the knowledgeable in our crowd, in the audience, that they are a weight for a digging stick. I assume they would, I don't know what they would dig for, I presume roots. I don't know what else. I don't think they planted crops or plowed or anything like that.
Well, they dig for the burrows of animals, amongst other things.
Okay, to get to the animals, okay.
And of course, they would hide their containers of water underground as well.
Of course, yes, okay. And maybe they would even go down to the rocks in the sea and go and knock mussels out with them off the rocks and so on for eating. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for attending. If you'd like, I'll send the link to that video if you don't have it yet, if anybody's interested.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Okay, Peter, can we forward the link to the video, to tonight's video, to everybody? And if you've got any comments on email, you're welcome. Give us your feedback and thoughts at a later stage.
And what Chris has sent you, that might be very interesting.
Yeah, I'll forward that. I'll forward the link to that to everybody as well. All right, so we can all
Thanks.
give our opinions back to Chris.
Thanks, Derek.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks to everybody for attending, and have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers all.
Good night,
Thanks,
all.
Jerry. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Mm-hmm.